Need motivation?
Watch the Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because chances are you are the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Dan Pena, and my take on his top 50 rules for success. Enjoy.
If love got the job done, you wouldn't need podcasts, you wouldn't need seminars. It doesn't. Tough love gets the job done. And the people that I've just alluded to, those names, I was doing some research for my talk, and I looked up Heineken, Gerard Heineken, who was the founder of Heineken beer in 1864. He talked his rich mother. Heineken's come from a wealthy family even before the beer. He talked his mother into buying a brewery in 1864, which they then turned into Heineken. Gerard was a hard ass. Tough as nails. Now, I didn't know him, I'm not that old, but I did know Freddie Heineken, the old man, and he was hard ball buster. Now, I don't know his daughter, the current CEO of Heineken, but I'm told she's a ball buster. I did know Steve Jobs. I do know Elon Musk. I do know Warren Buffett. I do know, and they're all ball busters. Success leaves clues, kids. I just named 5 of the greatest names in business in the last 150 years. And they all have one thing in common. They're ball busters. They're hard as nails. You don't need friends. Friends are problems. Friends are for you to share your misery with. And remember, you're not sharing misery anymore. And you don't share doubts. When you go home and you have a hard day, everything's terrific, honey. Why do you think they don't have more confidence in you? Because they've seen you whine like a bitch. That's why they don't have more confidence in you. And maybe in the movies, you know, when the guy puts his head on his wife's chest, it's crying. Maybe in the movies that works, but in real life, all they do is have disdain for you, disgust that turns to hatred. And if you think any different, what are you smoking? And if it's not addictive, give me some, because I want to smoke it too. When you get out there, remember I said the tough thing is to run the businesses once you buy them. Top line is king. Top line meaning sales, revenue. You can always find an accountant to go around and cut expenses. You can always find people, bean counters to do this, that, and the other thing. But people that drive top line, people that drive the revenue stream are magic. And those are the people. And I've been good all my life at finding people that know how to drive the top line. Because I am a top line guy, and I know what it takes. And it's just basic sales. All I've done is I've taken my sales skills from selling, pots and pans and insurance over kitchen tables to selling governments. 98% of the high-performance people on the planet, they want to be liked. 98%. We're talking, I'm at the cutting edge, the hard edge. He's not at the hard edge. He's someplace in the middle. But being liked doesn't get you a raise when you're working for whoever you're working for. Efficiency, accountability. Most people that come to seminars are there because they weren't held accountable when they were growing up. There used to be a saying when I was growing up, which is very politically incorrect now. Spare the rod and spoil the child. The rod meaning beating, okay? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Now we have kids, and I'm sure many in the audience can attest to this, that have never been reprimanded, never spanked by their parents, never been screamed at, never been slapped, never been in a schoolyard fight with another kid. And look at you. We had, at my seminar, and I'm not bragging about this, we had, in the last 2 seminars, we had 2 guys pass out just from stress, fell over and hit their head on the floor from stress.
Because the words you were saying.
No,
just
because I'm a hard guy, and I make them accountable. You're late, you're out. Don't come back. You can't be late. You're either early or don't come. And so the kids today, their parents never made them accountable, and their grandparents apparently didn't make their parents accountable.
Also, if you want to have more self-belief and more self-confidence, I've created a special free program where every day for the next 254 days, I will send you an unlisted video to help you boost your self-belief and self-confidence. The link to join for free is in the description below.
A kid like you, if you had to keep track of 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, what you do, but no one does know initially up front. You have to try. You have to swing at the plate. You want people with a like mind and that are better than you, smarter than you, more intelligent than you to get on your bus. I had no plan B. Until I was 60 years old, I spent 125% of every dollar I ever made. If I made $1 million, I spent $1,250,000. If I made $10 million, I spent $12.5 million. Okay? 1 year I made $100 million and I spent $125 million. Okay? And at 60, my wife and I sat down and he says, I think we should downsize and, stop all that. And I had a lot of stuff, okay? Most of which I didn't use. We had a lot of houses and that we never went to. And I don't believe in plan B, because if you have a plan B, you'll use it. If we're going to give you one word to increase your balance sheet emotionally, be more selfish. One word. Because what are you taught when you're a little kid? Johnny doesn't have toys, so let Johnny play with your toys, right? Johnny. His parents should have got the toys. If he's got no toys, piss on him.
And then bite his nose off.
No, well, I didn't know about biting nose off until I got a little older.
I will say, I've given that advice to people. I think a lot of people that I interact with maybe aren't selfish enough, and for that reason, they're not able to get their own shit done, and they're struggling and caught up in a spot in life that they don't want to be in.
Well, if they can't get their own shit, then how are they going to get your shit done?
Yeah, precisely.
And by the way, leadership is me getting you to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it, not when you decide to do it.
Why things are the way they are right now with political correctness, social norms, which I think is a disaster, outright disaster. I hate it. And I'm not quite sure what to make of it in terms of where is it going. But I'd like to know what your take is on how all this insanity started, where it's about feelings and hurting feelings.
Political correctness, in my judgment, is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. When I grew up, I had an alpha male dad, superhero from the Second World War and the Korean War, who looked like, he had a 56-inch chest, a 30-inch waist, and he had 18-inch arms, and he'd never lifted weights, okay? And and all his buddies, if you will, from the Second World War and the Korean War looked more or less like him. And they allegedly, and in reality, they saved the generation from all the bad stuff.
They call that the greatest generation,
correct,
right?
Correct. And so I thought everybody was like that. And when I went out into business and I made a lot of money, and then when I got thrown out of the company I founded, what was I going to do? And I thought, well, I'll go back and teach university. It's a long-winded answer to your question. And I taught university for $1, an honors class, and I was really dismayed. And so then I said, well, I'll coach the meatheads, the kids. And because I thought everybody had some sort of self-esteem. Now, when I was at Bear Stearns, almost everybody had self-esteem at some level, okay?
Were you in New York at the time, Bear Stearns?
Yeah.
What years was that?
Yeah, it was 77 through 81.
So you know Ace Greenberg?
Ace hired me. Cy Lewis hired me. Cy Lewis himself. And I was the most successful, allegedly, non-Jew in the firm. And they always said that I was Sephardic. And they said, you got to be Jewish. And it's all right, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. And so, but they were pushy guys, and we weren't the white shoe guys, like the Goldman Sachs or those kind of guys. We were pushy guys that got shit done. And so, but there I was still surrounded with guys that had a lot of self-confidence and a lot of self-esteem. And so I was led to believe that self-esteem wasn't such a rare commodity or quantity, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But in reality, we both know it is. Yeah. And self-confidence, self-esteem, etc. And so the world today is political correctness. Back to your original question, is because we want people to like us. We want to fit in. We don't want to stand out. In a day when somebody will commit suicide on Facebook because they're disliked is beyond my comprehension. I can't understand it. I just don't. And why the parent of the kid that kills himself doesn't go kill his parents is beyond me. You know, there's certain things worth dying for, and that's one of them in my judgment. And but it's getting worse and worse and worse. We have 2 tests on my website. All my stuff's free, by the way. One is called a Snowflake Test. 96.4% of the people that take the Snowflake Test fail. The first or second question on the test is, if someone spit in your mother's face, now I'm gonna say this real slow so that, because you're Dutch, I remember. If someone spit in your mama's face, Baldy, you in the front row right here, okay? What are the choices? There's 4 or 5 choices. The choice that's most clicked is I would try to figure out where he was coming from and if he had a bad day. Now, what the f does that have to do with spitting in your mama's face? I would try to figure out if he had a bad day. Does that mean if he had a bad day, it's all right to spit in your mother's face? We have another test. It's called Super Success Test. 98.4% flunked that test because we decided to make a softer test. Okay, well, maybe the guys really believe that they shouldn't punch the guy's, stab him in the eye with a knife for spitting on your mama. Okay, we'll do a new test. It's called the Super Success Test. So we ask softer questions, hoping, praying that the results are going to be better. Boy, never underestimate how wrong you can be, kids. So the softer test was based on what kind of sacrifices are you willing to be super successful? 60 hours a week. Nobody is willing to work 60 hours a week to be successful. Nobody's willing to miss an anniversary, wedding anniversary to be successful. Nobody is willing to miss a holiday. If you booked a holiday and something important happened in business, would you tell your family to go on the holiday without you? And you're not gonna go. Nobody said yes. And it's got 27 questions or 26 questions, and they flunked that test worse than the other test because you're not willing to make any sacrifices to be high performance. I tell everybody going to healthcare. Healthcare is hot, okay? People my age don't want to die, and so they're spending more and more money. Yep. 19.5 cents of every dollar spent in America is spent on healthcare. Call it 20 cents. And it's because my generation is getting older and older. If you're born today or 2019, you're going to live between 92 and 93 years old. Okay, when I was born, you were only going to live till 60 something. So the kids have an opportunity, but it's the emotional sacrifices. We have 2 bank accounts in life. We have an emotional bank account. We have a financial bank account. Most of you have been taught about the financial bank account that you need to use to get into deals. You need to have an emotional bank account. You got to man up. You got to have a pair. Okay, in the military, they say, sound up like you had a pair, Pena. Okay, and that resonated with me because I used to have a squeaky voice. Don't have that anymore. And my wife says, because I've been yelling for 45 years, maybe that's why I don't have a squeaky voice anymore. But it's all there. But we don't tell the kids that there's a secret sauce. We don't tell them that there's a shortcut. When you tell the average kid that has never sold anything, you're 2,000 cold calls away from being a multimillionaire. Oh. I guess I don't want to do that bad. Do I have to work on the weekends? I remember we had a superstar years ago that wanted me to meet her parents. And we drove across, I happened to be in Florida. We drove across Alligator Alley, which is a freeway on the bottom tip of Florida, all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we stopped in, and as we drove up to their house, they lived in a golfing community. The parents were rolling around on the lawn fighting. The mom and dad. And the mom was on top of the dad, beating him like a rented mule. And then it all became clear to me what had happened to the girl. It was a girl. And then as soon as we drove up, they brushed themselves off and they were drinking. They had tumblers. They had 32 ounce. You know how you go to a Starbucks or something, you get a 32 ounce big drink, or you go to a KFC, you get a 32 ounce. They had 32 ounce tumblers that were full of ice, and they pour a bottle of vodka. So they diluted themselves. Well, at least the ice, all the 32 ounces of ice was diluting down the quart of vodka they put in there, or half a quart, whatever it was. And so it was the quickest dinner I've ever had. We were there and gone in 45 minutes. And the girls cried from that house to Tampa. And those are the days I used to drive still. I drove to Tampa and I had to get on a plane. But when you have no role models, other than bad role models, 99 times out of 100, what comes out is something less than, you want to brag about. The fact that you're not going to succeed the first time. Rarely do you succeed the first time.
I'm a big believer in that,
Okay,
right?
it could be the 5th time, the 25th time.
It's called failing elegantly. You got to learn to fail in business as much as succeed, right?
Yeah. I wasn't too good at failing elegantly.
No, the first time, me neither. I failed miserably the first time.
Yeah, and I'm considered a roll-up guy, but the first roll-up I tried in 1981 was a colossal failure.
Which was what? What did you do?
At the London Stock Exchange, I tried to roll 15 energy companies together, and it was the week before Princess Di married Prince Charles.
Uh-huh.
And it just collapsed. All the support.
For voting for their marriage.
Yeah, and the aftermarket didn't exist. So then I came back 3.5 years later with a big success, and more or less that's what I'm remembered for. But I remember paying the bills, the professional fees that I had that I couldn't afford to pay for the next 2.5 years. That I contemplated walking away from, but I wound up paying them. But it took me 2.5 years, so the kids today don't want to feel that pain. I still work 50, 60 hours a week, and I haven't had to work in 35 years. 35 years. But the world has changed. I mean, and the kids. And when I started giving all my product away for free about 10 years ago, and the reason I went from the highest priced product on the planet to zero, because I got so tired of you crying, moaning, and whinging, oh, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. So now I give it to you for free. I get 3 times more emails now. Man, there's so much here, I don't know where to start. What do I do? So then a year ago, we developed a new product, Qla for Dummies. It was called Qla for Retards, but we got in trouble with the Retardation Association. They're going to sue me for using that word. So we pulled that out and we said just dummies. Dummy seems to be a politically correct, acceptable word, but not retard, okay? And but the results are even worse. Because what you're saying is, okay, fine, I wasn't raised to go hit somebody if they spit in my mother's face, but I'm not willing to miss a holiday and stay in the office and work and let my family go without me. So the bottom line, you're not willing to do anything. You're not willing to sacrifice anything to be a high-performance person. I was raised very strictly, and I raised my children slightly less strictly, but I made them accountable. Mm-hmm. When my dad said, be home at midnight, he was waiting in the drawing room in the dark for whenever I snuck in. Mm-hmm. He'd throw me up against the wall, put a flashlight in my face to check my eyes, pupils for alcohol, smell my breath. Mm-hmm. The only thing he didn't give me was a blood test. Mm-hmm. And God forbid if I came home as a minor under the influence of alcohol. God forbid. Mm-hmm. Now, kids do a lot worse. Kids don't come home. You know kids. Maybe you didn't come home some nights.
Mm-hmm. I was actually, I was pretty good. There was once I got arrested when I was younger, but apart from that, I was pretty good. That was just a case of me being with the wrong people at the wrong time.
My father only had one goal for me growing up, to keep my son Danny alive till he reaches the age of reason. Mm-hmm. That may be 20, 30, 40, or 50, or maybe never. Thank God lived long enough to see me reach the age of reason. Just about. Some people still don't think I'm at the age of reason, and be very successful.
Let me ask you. I don't want to. You're beyond like steps for success, but like just if you could really break it down, like if you're the average kid out there,
Average schmuck kid.
average. But give me like what's the plan? The 5-10 step plan.
Laser beam focus.
Laser beam focus.
Okay, focus.
Step one.
Focus on the few, not the many. Focus on the few, not the many. Meaning, most of the kids or most of the adults have got 4 or 5 projects, none of which are worth a shit. Okay, and so they're trying to make them all work because they're afraid to walk away because they spent too much time developing it. The great thing about the internet is the results are instantaneous. Yet the kids work on apps and programs and write code, not for an hour, a week, a month, but years. And they get no results. Your results are instantaneous. Most of the programs don't work. So focus on the few, not the many. Laser beam focus and absolute 1,000% total commitment and willing to make personal sacrifice. Remember, I said to you when you're talking to the financial institutions, one way or another, they're going to sneak a question in. Is there any way this deal won't work? How does this deal collapse? How does this deal fold up? And you're going to say, you're going to jump out of your pantyhose and jump up and say, no, there's no way. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread, motherhood, and apple pie. You don't want any vibration whatsoever. And for some of you, for most of you, it's hard for you to be enthusiastic. Enthusiasm, self-esteem, enthusiasm, the God from within. And self-esteem, self-confidence, all the things that we keep on harping. And why do I keep harping on them? Because most of the kids, not just in this group and not just on YouTube, don't have any. Because their role models have been, poor. I found making $450 million easy. Easy. And I wanted to do something more with my life. And so when I got into the financial coaching, I wanted to change the fabric of financial coaching, which I have, and I wanted to be known as and now that's what they call me, the greatest of all time. But this was just me flapping my mouth 25 years ago. Now I am the greatest of all time, vis-a-vis creating wealth through people like yourselves, and I wanted to leave that legacy. And I wanted people like, I'm from the barrio, I'm a real rough background, been in jail 5 times, did a lot of ugly things, which I don't recommend to anybody. But I'm glad it happened to me because I know what the other side, like some of you have never been, kicked in the teeth. I know what it is to be kicked in the teeth and my teeth be on the pavement. I know what that feels like. I know the humiliation. Forget the pain. You get over the pain. And I wanted the poor kids to understand that they had a methodology. There was a methodology used by one of them, and I'm considered for poor, although it's hard pressed for me to say how, they don't believe that I'm poor now. But I mean, that was once poor and got in a lot of trouble. You can do it if you want to do it bad enough. The operative part of that little description is if you want it bad enough. Muhammad Ali, which used to be Cassius Clay, the great fighter, arguably one of the greatest fighters ever, he was talking shit since he's 14, 15 years old, I'm the greatest. Before he ever had a professional fight. We're not setting high standards for ourselves anymore. People tease me about how I dress. This is my dress down look, okay? I'm dressing down. Yeah. It's the day after New Year's, but there's people in my genre, people in my ilk, other than Asians from India or Japan, where they wear a different kind of dress clothes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tell the kids that I train, dress like the prime minister, dress like a president of your country, and you'll be okay. Mm-hmm. Okay? And not dress like a Kardashian or dress like some of the sports stars. Mm-hmm. We just finished a 10-day seminar over Christmas, and kids, because we dress every day and we dress for dinner every night. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the kids had to go out, and I think most of the kids had to go out and buy, and I call you a kid because I'm either old enough to be your father or grandfather. We had people in their 50s there, and we had people as young as teenagers there. Had to go out and, buy clothes. Otherwise, they can't come to the seminar. Now, I can see that why should a 20-year-old kid have to go and spend $5,000 on clothes? He doesn't have to come. I don't give a if he comes. But if you want to come and we dress with and we sit for dinner and we dress for dinner and butlers wait on you and I even sent him a link how to use a forks. You start from the outside and work in and from the top down. Most people don't know to stand when a woman walks in the room. Most people sit at the table before my wife sits at the table. These are all plain bog manners that you should have been taught. I like the manner, don't talk unless somebody talks to you. That way the royals used to be, where you couldn't look at them in the eye. First time I ever was presented to the Queen, she's only I'm exaggerating now, she's a very short woman. Yeah. I mean, I said to the guy that was introducing me, if I look below her eye level, I'm going to be looking at her knees because she's so short. And nobody thought that was funny. Now, 35 years ago, when I was first, I'm sure that they still wouldn't think it was funny. Yeah. But when I bumped into her about 5 years ago in a hospital visiting somebody, she probably met, 1 million people? And but the point is that we have no manners. I mean, it's why we have TV presenters now that chew gum while presenting the news? Then why? How is that possible? Especially in Britain. How is it possible that a TV presenter would chew gum while saying the news?
I don't know.
It should be impossible. Kids like the 22-year-old aeronautical engineer from yesterday afternoon that's closing his first deal. I think it's 3.75 million, doesn't know anything.
He's a chimpanzee.
No, but he's a Chinese chimpanzee, Chinese kid. And we've got kids that literally don't know anything, but they pull the trigger. And what the current generation does not do, will not do, and in my judgment, cannot do, is pull the trigger. Make a decision, You've been trained. Keep your head down. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass the family. Don't say things that may not happen. And I do just the opposite. I tell you to set goals beyond your lifetime. I tell you to set goals as soon as humanly possible. When kids come to me, they want to make 1 million, 10 million, and then when they've made 100 million, they say, Mr. Pena, we would have never, ever dreamt that we could create 100 million until we met you. You will never exceed your highest expectation. You will never exceed your highest, craziest thought. Never. That's a guarantee. And so then why, other than you've been taught by your parents in conventional wisdom, to set low goals? They've told you, the theory is you set low goals so then you can stair-step achievement and you won't be as disappointed when you fail. That's the theory. But normally the person or the persons that have proposed that theory are poor. But most people aren't willing to make the emotional sacrifice. We have 2 bank accounts in life. We have a financial bank account, we have an emotional bank account. Most people, you've been taught about money. Save money, a penny saved, whatever those sayings are, okay? But it's not the financial bank account that doesn't allow people to fulfill their potential, which was part of your opening commentary. It's your emotional bank account, because you're not emotionally prepared. You're not tough enough to, when the shit hits the fan, to make a decision. Most people, it's like a tortoise. The only time a tortoise can move forward is when its head's out of its shell and its legs are out, right? But that's when it's most vulnerable, right? It's safest when it pulls all the shit in, right? And that's how most people go through life, not taking the risks. Most people are living a quiet life of desperation. And that's why so many that are taking this new test of mine when I say, would you want your kids to be like you? Even the snowflakes say, bloody hell no, please. Growth only comes through pain. I don't. You probably don't have any athletes in the audience. But anyway, for those that have read about being an athlete, okay, no pain, no gain. It's the same in life. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Dan Pena, Ted Turner, amongst a whole bunch of others, all had one thing in common. We all slept in our office the first 5 or 10 years of our business life. Slept in our office. The first 5 or 10 years of our business life.
The emotional bank account. How does someone build their emotional bank account then?
Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. You can't get rid of your parents.
Yeah.
But if love got the job done, we wouldn't have problems in life. There would be no world wars. If love really worked. And you know how this, and my mom was a big believer in love got the job. Love and prayer got the job done. Okay. Now, dissimilar to Filipinos, love and prayer. And no matter how many kids you have in the Philippines, and I've had a lot of employees, it's even if they have 40 kids, it's God's gift. They need another kid like they need AIDS, but it's God's gift. What kind of stupidity is that? It's not God's gift. You just should have practiced rhythm, or and God. You can't use contraceptives. No, not that. Okay. And I know the cardinal there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, show me your friends. I'll show you your future. High performance people fly like eagles. Eagles fly alone. Zuckerberg has no mates. Elon Musk has no mates. Steve Jobs had no mates. Bill Gates has no mates. And I can go on and on and on and on. They don't hang. They don't chill. They don't go to the Super Bowl. They don't go to the World Cup. They don't go to Wimbledon. All they do is work. I fall into that category.
When you started all your being a rebel and basically causing havoc, where did that come from?
Well, it came from, you had to be tough where I was raised. There was no soft people. Everybody was a hard ass. And if you weren't a hard ass, you got the shit thumped out of you every day. But the rebel part, I've always had high self-esteem. I didn't realize growing up that most people don't have self-esteem. I thought everybody did, because my little group, where my alpha male father had a lot of self-esteem. He was a war hero from the Second World War and the Korean War. And he had a lot of self-esteem. And the guys that he was around had a lot of self-esteem. And so I took advantage of that self-esteem. And it was in a legitimate way. When one guy has self-esteem and 15 don't, it's very easy for that one guy to control the 15. And I utilize that in the financial world, and I've been utilizing that, and now I teach the kids how to build self-esteem. Low self-esteem isn't a permanent thing. It's like a drug habit. You can get rid of it. It's not easy. In fact, it's very, very difficult to get rid of it, but you can. And so but self-esteem is the basis of all high performance. And when you look around, people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they all have a lot of self-esteem. They fall into 3 categories, the kids that come to the class. And I call you all kids because I'm either old enough to be your father or grandfather, okay? Now, in an audience I was a couple days ago, there were actually 2 guys my age. So, and one couldn't hear, and he was trying to go like this, But he says, I can hear you, Mr. Pena. Well, that's good, because it's very seldom that somebody in the audience can't hear me. So, they fall into 3 categories. 10 years ago, my demographics were between 40 and 55, meaning the people that came were interested in me. 10 years later, my demographics are 15 to 35. 15 to 35. Now, the people that come, a third of them don't have a pot to piss in nor a window to throw it out of. They don't have 2 euros to rub together. They don't have 2 euros. They've either taken a mortgage out on their house, and in the United States, they can even get student loans, which I don't understand that exactly. But I mean, they get student loans. And of that third, half are still in school, living at home. Okay. The next third have businesses that really aren't real businesses. All they are is they've produced a job for themselves, a job for their wife, a job for their cousins. They're doing between 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 euros a year in business and maybe 2 million euros in business. They've got a business that barely gets along. A third of them have been reasonably successful vis-a-vis conventional wisdom. They've got businesses 5, 10, 15, 20 million. We've had some people that actually had some serious money. So those third. But that's no representation of who's successful. Because the third that already have money figure out this is too much work. Okay? The third that's in between, life has a way of catching up. Their mother is dying of cancer. And I'm not saying this because it's funny. Their 9-year-old daughter gets pregnant. 9. And their whole life, you have a 9-year-old daughter that gets pregnant and you keep her, your whole life changes. I've seen it with my own eyes. Okay? And the third, the kids have less baggage. We have kids, the only asset they have is a 15-speed bicycle, which kind of puts the same category you're in. A 15-speed bicycle. For those of you that have done any research at all, on my website, we have teenage multimillionaires flying around in their own jet planes. Teenage multimillionaires flying around in their own jet planes. They understand that?
I think they do.
Okay. You should be embarrassed. Teenage multimillionaires flying around in their own jet plane. And he's the one that had the 15-speed bicycle. That's why I use it a lot. He's not a teenager anymore. He's 21. If he were standing right here, Josh Kim. He's half Korean, half Caucasian. But the one thing that they all have in common is they're hungry. Hungry for a better life. Hungry for change. Hungry for the tough love their parents didn't give them. But the kids don't want to. Jack Welch says it better than I, because when I hear these questions about balanced life, I go berserk.
Me too.
No,
It's
there's life choices and they have consequences, Jack says, which I agree. That's a nice way of saying, but there's no balanced life. You're either all in or you're not. There was a period of time from 1971 to 1996, I had no days off, including the day I got married. I worked in the morning. Mm-hmm. They just did a chart on me 2 years ago, based on the hours that I've worked. I'm really not 70, I'm 131. I'm 131 years of 40 hours, 5 days a week, because I still work 60, 70 hours a week or more. I used to work 100, 110, 115 hours a week. When I was your age, I could work 4 or 5 days in a row with no sleep. Go out for a 10-mile run and come back and work another day. But the difference is I loved everything that I've ever done, looking back in hindsight, I absolutely adored. I had great passion for it. Yeah. Because if you don't have great passion for it, it gets old quickly. It's like a girlfriend or a boyfriend, ladies. A boyfriend. I mean, after 2 dates, 2 nights, you want to kick him to the curb. And you're asking yourself, how did I get involved with this?
Do you think all your boisterous stuff when you were younger and your anger and frustration, when did you channel that into changing your life and creating a business?
I channeled it when I saw how different I was. I channeled it that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Okay? The mealy mouth that sits in a corner reading a book doesn't get much attention. Okay? The wallflower girl, lassie, doesn't get much attention. And so I learned that the more I open my mouth, I've refined my ability to talk and speak over the years. When I was a young guy, I was just pushy, obnoxious. Now they call me, I'm not pushy, obnoxious. I'm still pushy, but not obnoxious. It's hard to call somebody with as much money as I have obnoxious. So they just say I'm pushy. But I almost will never take no for an answer. I don't care. My reply to you, if you say no to me, that's something I've requested. How can I make it so it's a yes? What can I change about the proposal? What about the structure? I normally turn half of the no's into yeses, because normally it's something you said, you did. It's not like the Glasgow football, the Rangers versus the Celtics. It's not that kind of thing. It's not ingrained that they were raised to say no to you. Okay, they said no based on you didn't tick one of the boxes, and so when you learn to push the right buttons, as my Yorkshire wife would say, to push the right buttons, you know how to narrow it down to turn some of those no's into yeses.
I think we would like to know, how does it work? The Qla Principle.
Okay.
The basics. What can you teach in?
There's only one moving part to the Qla model.
How does it work?
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now. There's only one moving part. If it was a two-moving part, I couldn't explain it to the Dutch guys. But since it's only got one moving part, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt that you can get this. Motivated seller. Now, I know it's not politically correct to talk about having sex with 1,000 partners anymore. But rock stars got nothing on Dan Pena. I got more ass than a toilet seat at a bus station. And I was proud of it. How? Because I asked. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And you've been taught all your life not to ask. To politically fit in. You can't be a good father, a brother, a son, or whatever, unless you feel good about yourself and you love yourself. Mm-hmm. Most people despise themselves. Most people are ashamed. I have a slide on my website. It's a guy that was lashed 100 times. Where he goes, he belongs to a group of young people about your age that are so ashamed of being snowflakes, so ashamed of being so ashamed that they haven't accomplished anything in life other than went to good schools and got good education and living off their parents' tit. And they beat themselves. They're so ashamed. And then I tell them, well, at least you're not so ashamed you're going to commit suicide, because I think that's the biggest form of being a coward, committing suicide. Mm-hmm. Most people hate who they are. The good news is there is no compressed algorithm for my 50 years experience and your 35 or 40 years experience. They haven't figured out how to do that yet. And probably not in my lifetime.
Hopefully not in mine either.
Yeah. And so that's the benefit we have. And you made the comment earlier about people that are stealing our and they're charlatans. They are taking things that we have developed or stand for, and they are benefiting without the experience. So where it really comes to bear is during a Q&A, and that's why most of these guys don't have Q&As, because they can't answer the questions. They can't answer the question, I mean, intelligently.
Sure.
And so, and whereas guys like us can, because unless you've lived it, you're just, you're reading something out of a book, or you're listening to a podcast. I used to be a big weightlifter, and I use what I used to warm up with now is what I lift now, because I'm about 50% weaker than I was back in my heyday 20 some years ago. But we have a gym here. We actually have two gyms.
Sure enough.
The kids today find reasons, or they find things to do to really procrastinate, to not take action. But you got to love, you got to have a passion for what you do. If you don't, it gets tired. Alistair Cook, the great presenter, BBC presenter, told me about, 30, 35 years ago. Being a professional, being a high-performance professional, is being able to do your very best when you don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. Okay? When you don't, okay. And I've had days, not every day, do I want to speak when I'm at the universities, Oxford, University of Edinburgh, whatever. But they don't know it. Mm-hmm. As far as they're concerned, I look like, I was born for that night. Yeah. But I was taught high-performance people don't leave anything on the stage. Yeah. Yeah, in athletic endeavors, I never left anything on the field. In public speaking, I don't leave anything on the stage. I'm fully spent at the end of each day.
What was that made you so success-oriented? Was there anything you could point to, an experience, or just you always kind of like that? But you're always channeling.
No. I've been in jail 5 times.
Okay.
Got a university 3 times.
Okay.
Ultimately came back and graduated, only to displease my mother because I was going to be allegedly, the first college graduate in our family, which doesn't mean shit. But anyway, I am
Especially nowadays.
Oh, yeah, especially now. Okay.
It's a negative.
Yeah. And at the height of the Vietnam War, I volunteered for the draft, 1966, and you've seen the movie Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, the United States Congress, when you're an officer in the American military, you get a thing from Congress that says Officer and Gentleman. I'd been called a lot of things, but never a gentleman. And it turned my life around, and because I had responsibility for other people, and it changed my life. It changed my life. My method for success was I spent 125% of everything I ever earned when I got out of university. For every dollar I earned, I spent $1.25. Why? Because I never wanted any savings. I never wanted any backup. I always wanted to be under the gun. I didn't understand it, what I was doing at the time, just as I modeled and mimicked and mirrored very successful people. I didn't understand that that was the basis of my QLA. I mean, success leaves clues. And so I went and I, in some cases, in a very impolite manner, forced myself on some very successful people. 40 years ago. But they thought it was a blessing. They said, well, God, we've been looking for a kid like you. You know, you remind me of me. You remind me of me when I was 25, 30 years old. As opposed to being afraid to put yourself forward. I mean, we've had people that got return emails from Bill Gates. Now, I would have thought that's pissing in the wind, trying to get Bill. Steve Jobs said before he died, he says, not anybody I ever tried, and this is when he was a kid, not anybody I ever tried to get a hold of to help me ever turned me down. And this is before people knew Steve as Steve Jobs. But the people are afraid. They lack the grit, the emotional fortitude, because they've seen their parents live lives of desperation.
What are the tough times in the QLA process with the mentees you've had in the past 25 years? What are the common mistakes?
Common mistakes is they skip the steps. We list the 7 steps on the site. They go from step 1 to you've got an uncle who's a lawyer, you've got a cousin who's a banker, and you've got a brother-in-law who's an accountant. Almost everybody in this room has somebody they know that's either a banker, an accountant, and or a lawyer, right? And you go to them. This system is based on doing business with people you don't know. Why don't you want to know them? Because familiarity breeds contempt. Familiarity breeds contempt. Because now you're happy slappy, you're going out to lunch, you're going out to dinner, your kids are taking tennis lessons together, and now it's hard for you to end the business relationship when it doesn't make sense for you anymore. These are new, fresh faces that you found on LinkedIn. Lou Gessner, that turned around IBM 25, 30 years ago, he says, the last thing we need is a strategy. All I know and all I teach is closing. I'm a hammer closer.
So persuasion, close the.
Oh yeah, and it's beyond persuasion. It's I beat them to a pulp. I beat them to a pulp.
Explain.
If they say no 50 times, the 51st time they're going to say yes. I told you earlier on, I've seen the sun come down and go up, sitting at the same coffee table or kitchen table.
Negotiating.
Reclosing.
Not taking no for an answer.
No for an answer. I tell the kids, you want to save the world? I'm not a save the world guy. I don't give a the world ends, I don't give a shit goes down the toilet. But if you want to save the world, go create a product or a service that changes 1 billion lives, like Zuckerberg and Facebook, okay? And then take that money that you make off that product or service and then go change the rainforest or whatever. But just carrying placards around embassies doesn't change anything. The kids that want to save the world, we teach, we coach, we mentor that they have to create something that's worth something to 1 billion people. And by definition, you'll get super wealthy and you'll be able to make your dent in changing the world. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and that ilk, They made tons of money before they started changing the world. Only in recent years have they tried to change the world and stop typhoid, stop malaria, help the rainforest reduce its decreasing the rainforest. But they've been super wealthy a long time. You only have one time to make a first impression, whether it's verbal or in appearance. Your subconscious, or as the psychiatrists call it, sub rosa, conscious mind remembers the first words that you said and my first impression of how you were dressed. Yours was when you first heard me on another podcast of some sort, probably, and my look, how I dress. And nobody in the higher echelons of finance. Now, if you want to, there's nothing wrong with being a joiner. There's nothing wrong with being a brickie. There's nothing wrong with being God bless you. Allah be with you. But if you want to attain the heights in the world that I come from, and some of you will be so turned off, you'll never want that. That's fine. Good. At least you learned young. But there's only one time to make a first impression. They talk about the first time the prime minister met Trump. Remember the big hoopla and the bullshit that was going on? And the first words that come out of the mouth after their private time together? And when he held her hand when they were walking out of the steps of the White House? Why, if first impressions aren't so important, like I believe, why is everybody focused on them? Because they are important. They are important. The world has become sophisticated. Political correctness reigns. And I'm here to tell you, in my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, that political correctness is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. Because you care about what people say about you. You care about what people think about you. And I don't. And either does Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Henry Ford I, and I can go down the list. People don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see you do. If you're a leader that comes in at 6:30 in the morning, even though the workday doesn't start till 8:30, the employees will probably come in at 7:30. If they see you working until 8 o'clock at night, even though the workday is over at 4:30 or 5, they may not stay till 8 o'clock at night, but they'll probably work till 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. So they see, the same with raising kids. Kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see their parents do. That's why so many kids are snowflakes, because their parents were snowflakes. So leadership starts with you and the examples you set. But you have to lead by example. You have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I know guys that are wealthy that come to work at 11, go to lunch, go to the gym, and then go home. And they want to know why they're not as productive as they should be. LinkedIn is the easiest, the fastest, and there's a premier LinkedIn. I think it costs €100 a month. Use the premier LinkedIn, where you're not limited to how many people you can contact. And it's
That's the dream team.
For the dream team, for your accountants, and for your lawyers, for everybody. All your professional associations can be derived on LinkedIn. It's a great tool. I wish that I had invested in it when it came out 15 years ago. It's just a terrific tool, because by definition, everybody that is on there is looking to do some sort of business. And a lot of times they fudge and they say they're interested in charitable associations. They're interested in pro bono, meaning for free. That's not necessarily true. They're there to try to make money. Most of you have been taught taking action is listening to a podcast. Taking action is reading a book. Taking action is taking a course online. No. Taking action is pulling the trigger. You know, I say in 4 words what most people say in a book. Just do it. That's taking action. You don't get the third pretty girl to say yes to buy her a drink unless you ask her, right? The high performance people that we've alluded to so far during this interview don't hang out, don't go to the Super Bowl, they work 15, 18-hour days, have no friends. I mean, what does it take? A sledgehammer to hit the kid in the head to understand that they're doing the antithesis of that. They're doing the absolute opposite of that, and that's why their results are de minimis. They're not worth a shit. And but the kids today, and what I believe the political correctness movement, which is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. It's hard to find anybody with self-esteem, and it's doubly hard to find somebody with self-esteem that's got some balls. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's pretty, next to impossible. One of the reasons we started boxing at the seminars is that some of the kids had never been hit. Some of the kids had never been slapped. And so to see the fear in their eyes when they get ready to get up in the ring, it's quite remarkable. It's hard for me to believe that you can be 35 years old and never been in one confrontation in your whole life.
I heard this, you telling this story once. I'm not sure if it was in one of your free YouTube videos that you put out or if it was in an interview. This is kind of related, but it's more related towards commitment. You'd been in a dune buggy accident. Yeah. And then you had a meeting.
Almost killed myself.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, it was Easter 1999, and I'm racing dune buggies with my two sons down in Cabo San Lucas. And I hit a rock. Anyway, serious accident, no seat belts, no headgear. And I shattered my collarbone, broke most of my ribs, punctured my liver, my spleen, and almost dead. But I had a meeting in 3 days in Frankfurt, Germany with Klaus Kleinfeld, who is now the CEO of Nuam, the new $500 billion project in Saudi Arabia. It's actually a joint venture with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt. And so I got myself patched up, almost died, and I flew from LAX to Frankfurt. And one of my still longtime assistants, Vinica, picked me up, and I'm in a wheelchair, and they wheel me. And it has one of these space blankets, these shiny blankets that keep you warm, and my head is cocked over to the side because I couldn't straighten it out. Yeah. And so Klaus and a couple other luminaries were standing there, and Kleinfeld says, "God Almighty, Dan, why are you here, and what happened to you?" And so I said, "Vinica, straighten my head up." So she pulls me by the ear like this, and I said, "I told you I'd be here, Klaus. Unless I'm dead or in a coma. When I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it." But to see, then I expect you to do the same. We had a girl in intensive care, one of my mentees, who was dying up in Portland, Oregon, and supposed to be on a call. She sent a photograph of her in intensive care dying that the doctors took to send it to me. Why? She says, I'm going in and out of a coma. See, but unless you're dead or no, not your mother's coma, not your mother's death, your death, your coma. And the people that I know and had the privilege do the same. Just as when I say I'm going to fuck you up, I mean I'm going to fuck you up. And when President Trump or these guys say they're going to fuck you up, that's exactly what they mean. They're going to fuck you up. Yeah. Just like the cricket bat, 15, 16 people that I fucked up, they mean it. Not like these wuss, wannabes.
Snowflakes, right?
Snowflakes. Since my current star, if you will, who happens to be an active duty military, as the young man here, just broke the record for getting 2 deals closed in 117 days, while he's active duty military, while on duty, in his free time. So I know what can be done when you press yourself. One of the young men that I talked to earlier said something about to the effect that I didn't realize how innovative, these are my words, he's less articulate. I didn't realize how innovative I could be to come up with the money to come here until I had to. You don't know what you're capable of. I do. For those of you that are parents, I used to use the example with your wife, but your spouse, but I don't use that anymore. And somebody stuck a gun in the mouth of your child. You got 72 hours to do so-and-so, or I'm going to blow the little kid's head off. Guess how innovative you get. If it's your wife, kick the bitch to the curb. You don't give a shit. If it's a husband, the same thing. What gets measured gets accomplished.
How can it be if entrepreneurs go to the bank and won't get the money? What are the reasons?
It's a numbers game. For those of you that I'm going to say as a guy, because I can't relate to this as a woman. A guy is 20 pretty girls. Okay, the first one that you asked out on a date, or can I buy you a drink? Do guys still buy drinks for girls at bars? Yeah? Okay. We haven't sunk that low yet, okay? So the first one may not want you to buy her a drink, right? The way some of you look, I can't see, you'd have to pay them money to buy you a drink, buy them a drink. By the way, you only have 2 times to make a first impression. First is how you look. Second is when you open your big mouth. Most of you won't ask the girl if you can buy them a drink because you get nervous. You step on your. It's a numbers game. There are, last time I counted, there's about 300 banks in the Netherlands. 315, I think. I used to ask, how many have made a presentation to a banker today? This week? This month? This year? Ever? 4 hands went up. 5 hands. That's about right. 5 out of 250 people, that's about right. So how can you tell me this doesn't work? Because you've been scared by other pundits or things that you read about or things that you listen to on the news not to do it. And even though I can, and you go on the website and you can see all these kids that are not 15, they look 15, but they're 25, that are getting money just as he did 20 years ago. And it's easier than it was then because there's, number one, interest rates are significantly lower than when he did it. And number two, there's about 100 times more money in the banks than trying to push out the door than when he did it. He did it at a hard time. Interest rates were high. And the financial constraints, or the lack of financial constraints, let me back up. Another thing that keeps people from doing it is the crash of 2008, 2009, 2010. You've all read about that, heard about it, right? That's all horseshit. It happened, but it's not happening now. That's like saying for you, those of you that are old enough to have grandparents from the Depression, it happened, but it's not happening now. For those of you that have grandparents that fought in the war, you know, against the Nazis, it happened, but it's not happening now. In World War I, the Battle of the Somme, they've got a little young British lieutenant, and he, okay, lads, have a smoke, and they're having some Dutch courage. They have a drink before they're going to go over the top, knowing that 1 out of every 3 is going to be dead, and 1 out of 3 will be wounded or maimed, and 1 will live. And you're in the ditches here, and it's, you know, and you're walking around in shit because there's no toilets, and he blows the whistle. Okay, lads, over the top. Nobody's following you over nothing. Now, why would all these guys follow this little skinny guy he's got a little swagger stick under his arm, right? A little whistle and a little pistol. Why? Well, a lot of training. Leadership. And when you have that, oh, God forbid, that first board meeting, I mean, and you go to, and you swallow the whistle, I can't emphasize it enough. You got to take control. I know one of the questions, why are you so hard on the kids? Because it works. Because it works. Toughness works. And if love got the job done, we wouldn't be having this interview. Tough works. Do you see people collecting gold medals at the Olympics? Didn't sacrifice everything for 10 years, 15 years? No. Do you see anybody that, you know, have all these world records that hasn't sacrificed their entire life? No. Then why do the meatheads that are going to watch this podcast think for a microsecond that they can achieve anything worthwhile without massive sacrifice? They're delusional. Most people don't want to get out of the comfort zone. They're comfortable. And the Netherlands is a great place to be comfortable at, you know. I know. I mean, I've been here since the early middle 90s. But see, I remember what Amsterdam and Rotterdam looked like in 1952 and 53. I was here then as well, as a little kid. Flat, bombed out. You could pick up Nazi war helmets in the rubble. Almost as, this is an exaggeration, but almost as flat as this stage. When I was here from beginning of 52 to the end of 53. During the Korean War, my dad was an army officer, and he was able to bring his dependents here. And we were stationed in France, but Berlin, I mean, most of Europe was flat. See, so I know what it looked like. I know what it looks like now. But the people that had the big, much more expanded comfort zones were your grandparents, the Germans. You know, and they had hard times. But I mean, you haven't fought anybody except your waistline. And most of you are losing that battle. You haven't done shit. You know, what do you want your legacy to be? Some of you don't even want to talk. It's another thing you don't want to talk about. What's your legacy going to be? You know, when I tell students and groups, if I were you, anybody in the audience, and I could see a 17-year-old kid, multimillionaire, flying in his jet plane, I'd be embarrassed. Teenager, no education, homeschooled, one of 10 kids, and how can you, I don't care how you justify, I don't care what bullshit you can tell yourself, you can't bullshit yourself enough to overcome a teenage multimillionaire in his own jet. You can lie to yourself from now until Christmas, and you can't bullshit yourself over that. And that's only one kid. I got a jillion of them. What are you gonna do? Now, I say this metaphorically because my lawyers say I can't do it anymore. Most of you ought to just take a thing, boom, blow the top of your heads off, and then let Michael pray for you. What are you gonna do? And why haven't you accrued any money? Because this is how you were raised, most of you. Money's dirty. Money's not important. Other values more important. So how do you ever get here? You don't. There's some people sitting in this room, and for sure on YouTube, that in the last, over the holidays, they heard money's dirty, or a derivative thereof. We don't need money. Things are more important. And that's why the millennials are For those of you that want to save the world, go create something, a service, a product that changes 1 billion lives, i.e. Zuckerberg and Facebook, By definition, you'll change the world, and by definition, you become not instantly, but you'll create generational wealth, and that's what we're here to do. Throughout the past days, and especially yesterday, I honed in on the fact that your sales skills, and my sales skills I developed from door to door to selling governments, ultimately. Obviously, making more money every time I upgraded my prospect. Some of you, most of you, equate sales, as I just said the day before yesterday, with car salesmen, insurance salesmen, door-to-door salesmen. Hence, even though on a conscious level you might not think of it that way, at a subconscious level you have disdain for sales. This is a sales program. 100%. It's nothing more. We're like a 5-pound hooker standing at a corner with our dress up. Nothing more. We're whores. Nothing more. And if you can't swallow that, pun intended, swallow that, you're going to have a hard time with this. I collect frogs. I have probably 300 frogs, probably more. I have frog ties. I have frog cufflinks, which I'm not wearing today. Why do I? Because I know, for me, default is to stop kissing frogs. Kissing frogs meaning turning over rocks, looking for deals, looking for mentees, looking for devotees, looking for money. The reason that I was able to raise as much money during several major declines, not the least of which was the first decline when oil went from $41 a barrel to $6 a barrel, is because I wore not my feet out, my knees out, crawling around begging for money. Begging for money. Begging like a beggar in the street. Because I had no pride. Most people can't do that. In fact, hardly any people can do it. But the ones that come closest to being able to beg for money are up there. Because you think of the word beg, you think of homeless and all the things that go associated with it. And now they call it sleeping rough. Sleeping rough to me was having sex with 3 girls at the same time. That was sleeping rough to me. But now it's all, sleeping rough means you're in the street, you're sleeping on a park bench or some bullshit. If you don't kiss frogs, and this is just yet another gift from somebody, I mean, some of you will equate kissing frogs with kissing ass. And your parents didn't tell you to be an ass kisser, did they? Anybody in this room, their mother or father say, be an ass kisser, be a brown noser? I don't think so. And by the way, here's a picture, pass it around. This is a picture of Shekels in his prime. Every class has got a whipping boy and a whipping girl. Look at, it's hard to believe that he used to look like that, you know? You know what I'm saying? It's hard to believe. And so, but I've kissed so many frogs, turned over so many stones, knocked on so many doors, I've been spit on, slapped, doors slammed in my face. But I just kept going door to door. Because to me, default of being poor was not acceptable. I'd rather be dead. Now see, some of you say you'd rather be dead than poor. You're full of shit. There's not a person in this room, and only that many people in 26 years in this room that would rather be dead than poor. Life is precious. Right? Not to me. Not if I'm going to be poor. I've been rich and I've been poor. And there's no comparison. Sally and I would rather somebody put a bullet in our head than be poor again. Sally lived in a caravan about this. This is no caravan about this big. Family of 6. I was rich compared to her, as she would tell you, after a couple of champagnes, which isn't exactly accurate, but it's okay after all these years. But you gotta kiss frogs.
Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video? And what is your specific plan of action for the next week? When you just watch a video and get motivated by it, you have a 35% chance of following through. But when you get motivated and then create a specific plan of action, you have a 91% chance of following through. That's what we do here, Believe Nation. We get motivated, but then we do something about it. And when you commit to other people, you increase your chances even further of following through. So, what was your biggest takeaway from this video? And then what is your plan of action around it for this week? Put it down in the comments below because I want to celebrate you.
What would you say to that guy or girl? They're in their bedroom, they're watching this interview, you know, they've watched all the way through.
Hopefully, if it's 2 of them together, they had sex first, and then, you know, go ahead.
And they're watching it, and they're like, well, they're alone. Let's say they're alone, they're feeling sad or depressed, and they don't really know what to do or, you know, where to turn, right? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
If you're not passionate about what you're doing, change. But the thing that high performers understand, there's never an easy time to make a hard decision. Mm-hmm. It's never going to get easier, kids. Mm-hmm. The beginning of a year is a good time for change. You know, the first 30 or so days, it's good for change. It's hard to keep that change, but and you absolutely need to be exposed to people that are where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And that's not the current 5 monkeys that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Okay, better to deal with nobody. The reason why you need to be around somebody, because you're a victim. You're a victim of life. You're leading a quiet life of desperation. All the material is on my site. Go to Qla for Dummies and start with number 1. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, I'm not selling anything. And whether you're 17, we've had them as old as 77. There's hope.
If you want to see the top 50 I did on Grant Cardone, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
See, I've always loved helping people. Always. I am most happy when I'm helping someone else. Nothing to do with money.